Islam is the embodiment of injustice. It is unjust to Christians.
How is it?
It is unjust to Jews.
To run this robust defense of Christianity, forgetting that his fellow Christians, people who said they were acting in the name of Jesus, gave us the Crusades, the Spanish Inquisition, the anti-Jewish pogroms, European colonialism in Africa and Asia, the Lord's Resistance Army in Uganda, not to mention countless arson and bomb attacks on abortion clinics in the United States of America to this very day. I would like a little bit of humility from Daniel first before he begins lecturing other communities and other faiths on violence, terror and intolerance.
20 seconds.
Our civilization,
20
our
seconds.
our civilization testifies to the fact that Jews and Muslims and Christians lived in harmony for centuries. Even the most lying of Christian missionaries will admit that. Because academically, there are so many books written on this topic. One book I will strongly recommend is Professor Thomas Arnold.
Time is over.
I know you don't like it.
No, time is over.
Sources.
Time.
How do you regard Islam and the Muslim world nowadays? It's been very negatively stereotyped.
Well, look, I'm actually, interestingly enough, as an Orthodox Jew, a great champion of Islam. The fact is that the Jewish community has a real debt to the Islamic community, because when we were kicked out of Catholic Spain in 1492, when we were kicked out of Catholic Portugal, I think in 1503, it was the Muslims who took the Jews in. That's why there are Jewish communities in the Islamic world till this very day. The Islamic community, the Jewish community of Istanbul dates from then. It was specifically countries not beyond the Ottoman Empire where Jews were tolerated and they were welcomed in. And they paid a jizya, there was a poll tax they paid, but they were never persecuted, and there wasn't a Holocaust in the Islamic world. The fact is that Jews and Muslims have so much in common. Very often I meet Muslims here in the United States, and my first expression to them is one of sympathy. I honor you for celebrating your faith.
Very sad to hear or to realize that people... of course, you're already finished. Ladies and gentlemen, it is very disturbing that there are people like this in this world who actually believe in these things.
I don't believe it.
Right? This is why people like this end up killing Muslims, innocent Muslims around the world. It's people like him who are teaching the U.S. Army.
That's right.
Robert Spencer,
That's what Muhammad said.
Pamela Geller, Jay Smith,
That's right.
haters, absolute liars who teach the verses. And you know what they do? This is exactly what they do. They go to these institutions, they have these selected quotes that are completely out of context, and they read them in front of people, and people think, oh my God, Muslims are such barbarians.
Exactly.
But when we read the history of Islam, ladies and gentlemen, we come to realize the Treaty of Najran is there, and I'm reading word by word. This is the treaty between the Christians of Najran and the Muslims. Thus is the protection for the people of Najran, for the churches, for the bishops, for the crosses, for the idols, for the property, and for the cattle. No change whatsoever in the status shall be made. Number one. Number two, Treaty of Spain between Abdul Aziz bin Musa bin Nusayr and the Christian ruler of 7 cities. The ruler was called Gabdush. And the treaty states, and this treaty can be found in the book of Olivier Rimmel, and the book is titled Medieval Iberia. You can go and check the treaty in this book, how the Muslims treated the Christians. And furthermore, go further. How did the Christians and Jews feel about it? He has never lived under Islamic rule. He has never lived under Sharia. He cannot talk about it. And Sharia doesn't want you.
Exactly.
Let's hear the ones who have.
The point is, those who lived under Sharia,
Listen carefully.
Christians and Jews, what did they have to say? Bahya bin Pakuda, writing in 1085 in Cordoba, a Jewish rabbi, states, I know you don't like it. I'm going to finish.
What do you mean I don't like it?
I'm going to finish.
Wait.
Give me.
We said 2 minutes. If you go over 2 minutes, it's fine.
Out of your Christian generosity, give me 1 minute.
No.
Christian generosity.
No.
Out of your Christian generosity.
My Christian generosity.
The truth. You can have 3 minutes.
Truth and honesty.
You can have 3 minutes.
2 minutes. 2 minutes.
Time's up. They don't want people to know.
No.
Time's up because they don't want people to know.
Adnan.
They will let me shout for 1 minute, but they won't let me speak.
Okay, talk to me here.
Okay.
Can you conclude
Finish,
for
brother.
2 minutes?
Finish your point.
I'll give you 2 minutes. Conclude.
Thank you.
Do your conclusion.
Okay. Yeah.
You ready?
I'm doing
and then I'll do my conclusion.
No problem. For 2 minutes, yeah.
Yeah, there started.
So, ladies and gentlemen, I was saying that those Christians who lived under Islam, Bahya bin Pakuda, Jewish rabbi, writing in Cordoba in 1085, states that our living standard is even better than the Muslims. Likewise, Amnon Cohen, who is a Jewish scholar from Israel, wrote a book in 1994 titled A Word from Within, the sigil records from the 16th century. He studied the court records from the Ottoman period in Jerusalem for the year 1500 to 1570. For 70 years he read the court records, and in these court records he found 1,000 Jewish cases filed in the Sharia court, in the Muslim court. Why were the Jews coming to Sharia court? Because they found more justice. So who says so? Amnon Cohen, who is a Jewish scholar. Likewise, in the 9th century, in 850s, Patriarch Theodosius, writing in Jerusalem in the 9th century when the Abbasids were governing Jerusalem, he states, the Saracens, i.e. the Muslims, let us live in peace. They do not molest us, they do not abuse us in any shape or form, and they allow us to practice our religion with freedom. Theodosius. John Bar Penkaye, writing in the 7th century when Muawiyah radiallahu anhu was governing the Muslim empire, he writes that the peace throughout the world is such that we have never seen anything like it. And the list goes on and on and on. I have written a book on this topic, and the title of the book is Islam's War on Terror. Islam's War on Terror. You can find it PDF online. All the quotes and more is there, so that you can see the lying face of these missionaries.
So you can, it's 20 seconds left. You can clearly see this man has lived in Islamic State. The ones who have, look at their testament.
No, Islamic, under Islamic law,
yeah,
not Islamic State. Well, you know what Islamic State means?
Not that one. Yeah. So you can clearly see the ones who lived under that rule, how they testified. And you're talking about humiliation. Look, did any of them say we got humiliated?
في العربية توجه وفد سامري برئاسة أحد حكمائهم ويدعى صرمصة إلى سيدنا محمد عليه الصلاة والسلام من أجل الحصول على كتاب خطي يضمن أمنهم وحمايتهم.
توجه صرمصة وكعب الأحبار وراهب بحيرة توجهوا إلى سيدنا محمد، وقال له راهب بحيرة وكعب الأحبار قالوا بحساباتنا ظهر انك بدك تظهر. قال له ما خطبك يا سامري؟ قال له انا في عندك علامه بين كتفيك، اذا كانت موجوده انت محمد. كشف له ملابسه قال له انت محمد، بيت العلامه. بعدين قال لهم عزمون على الغداء. قال له السامري دي حجتي تمنعني. قال له وما حجتك؟ قال له ديني يقول كذا وكذا وكذا وكذا. قال له ايش بدي اكافئك؟ قال له الإسلام سوف ينتشر، أرجو إعطائي ذمام يكون أمان لطائفتي.
فكان لهم ما أرادوا، حيث أمر الرسول الأكرم بأن يكتب للسامريين عهد جاء فيه:
أنا محمد ابن عبد الله ابن عبد المطلب أمرت أن يكتب للسامرة أمان وضمانا على دينهم وديارهم.
Why would Jews choose Muslims over Christians? Bernard Lewis answers the question. He goes, because Jews were treated far better in the Muslim lands than they were in the Christian lands. In the Christian lands, Jews were being accused of dicide. What is dicide? Dicide is killing of God, the murder of God, because Jews were accused of killing Jesus Christ. Who is Jesus Christ? He's God. For that reason, throughout the Middle Ages, the Jewish people were persecuted. There were laws imposed against them. Their books were burnt, their libraries were burnt, they were exiled, in some cases from countries. In the 13th century, King Edward I exiled the entire Jewish population. Soon after, King Philip of France exiled the entire Jewish population. The question is, where did they go? They went to the Muslim lands in Spain. And when the Catholics took Spain in 1490s, or when the process of Reconquista started, when the Catholics started to come from the north, taking land from the Muslims in Spain, the Jews kept moving downwards. They kept moving southwards with the Muslims. And then when the entire peninsula was occupied by King Ferdinand and Isabella in the late 15th century, those Jews who could migrate, they migrated to Morocco. And those who could not, in the next century, throughout the 16th century, there was a process of Christianization. The Inquisition, the Spanish Inquisition kicked in, and this Inquisition forced the Muslims, who were known as Moriscos, and the Jews. They were forced to either die or accept Christianity. And that's why you do not find any Muslims from that period in Spain. The Muslims we have today in Spain, they are immigrants. They came into Spain in the 20th century. Before the 20th century, no sign of Muslims. Completely wiped out, right? Did the Muslims do this to any race, any people, any religion? Even in the most hostile of places, Muslims did not adopt a genocidal policy.
The Patriarch then sent us to the depths of the Sinai Desert, to a Greek Orthodox monastery where early Christians also sought protection. It's called St. Catherine's, and it's located at the foot of Mount Sinai, where, according to tradition, Moses received the Ten Commandments.
Altogether, we have 3,300 manuscripts.
The chief librarian, overseeing an incomparable collection of ancient manuscripts, is Father Justin.
Most of these date from the 10th to the 14th century.
A converted Baptist from El Paso, Texas. He showed us the monastery's collection of Byzantine icons, the largest and oldest collection in the world. Then he took us to what the Patriarch really wanted us to see, a little-known letter written by the Prophet Muhammad almost 1,400 years ago, signed and sealed with his handprint, offering protection and religious freedom to the Christians of the monastery.
These are precedents from Muhammad himself for toleration and peace among people of differing faiths.
History of Islam from the year 1 to the year 1300. Nothing. Ask them to bring out a genocide. What is a genocide? A systematic wiping out of a people, either due to their race or religion. You will not find an example in the Muslim chronicles of that. If you do, you will see that the Muslims were the first victims. What examples come up? Timur the Lame, also known as Timur the Lame. In the 14th century, he wreaked havoc. He killed more Muslims than he killed anyone else. Who did he attack? Timur. He conquered Central Asia, Muslim. He conquered Syria, Muslim. He came to Delhi. In India, Muslims governing Delhi. So even the genocides, the victims of the Muslims. So the point is, Muslims did not have this genocidal policy like some of these Christian missionaries like to claim, and when they are confronted with evidence, they have nothing to say. They know they expose, they're liars. These people are out here to lie to the audiences, and I feel sorry for the audiences, right? That's why we are here, so that the picture is clear and people can know the truth. So Islam never had this policy of absolutely humiliating Christians and Jews. There's no doubt there were restrictions on Jews and Christians, but they had the businesses, they had the churches, they had the bishops. We have testimonies throughout the world, throughout the history, where Jews and Christians are praising Muslims and Islam. One example very quickly, an Israeli.
The Muslim Empire, they didn't understand mathematics, they didn't understand geometry, they didn't understand physics, they didn't understand astrology without the Muslim influence in Europe in the Middle Ages. The Western civilization took a step backwards when the Muslims were thrown out of Spain in 1492.
What is your background? Are you Jew?
Yes.
Do you mind, as a Jewish, do you know historically that the Jewish being saved by the Muslims in Spain?
That is then. That is not necessarily now. For reasons that we best know.
Is that because most of the people, they don't know that about this? Could you tell us a bit about it?
Well, because they don't learn history.
What happened exactly?
And they don't bloody well read. I'm sorry to use the language. They should read and know. The tourists go to Spain. Do they look at Seville? Do they look at the Alhambra? Do they not see the effect on Spanish architecture of the Muslim architects? Southern France is the same thing.
So basically the Jewish that time they survived, which we know today, through the Muslim umbrella.
And we started to have a hard time in Europe when the Muslim Empire retreated.
Most of the people, they don't know. That's why we're going to put this in
the Europeans don't know it.
Yeah, that's right.
You know why?
Could you tell us why?
They don't want to know it.
That's the reason of it. Or maybe because of the history it's been hidden of them.
Do you know there were Muslim members of the UK Parliament at the time of Queen Victoria and Edward VII? They sat over here as free people. A lot of people don't know that either. You look up about Maimonides. He was the leading civil servant of the caliphs in Spain. He was one of those strange fellows who was a polymath.
Okay.
He was a mathematician, he was a doctor, he was a poet, he was an astrologer. You often wondered why he had time to sleep.
Set of speeches so far making this case tonight. A mixture of just cherry-picked quotes, facts and figures, self-serving, selective, a farrago of distortions, misrepresentations, misinterpretations, misquotations. Daniel talked about my article in the New Statesman, which got me a lot of flack, where I talked about the anti-Semitism that is prevalent in some parts of the Muslim community, which indeed it is. Of course, I didn't say in that piece that it was caused by the religion of Islam. In fact, modern anti-Semitism in the Middle East was imported from, finish the sentence, Christian, Judeo-Christian Europe, where I believe some certainly bad things happened to the Jewish people. In fact, Tom Friedman, Jewish-American columnist in the New York Times, told me in this very chamber last week that he believed, had Muslims been running Europe in the 1940s, 6 million extra Jews would still be alive today. So I'm not going to take lessons in anti-Semitism from someone who's here to defend the Judeo-Christian values of a continent that murdered 6 million Jews. Moving swiftly on.
I hope today, brothers and sisters, Bob is not going to run away from me. 2 weeks ago, the cameraman met me in the city. He's going to arrange a debate with me and Bob.
Right.
You know,
what are the names?
If you're man enough today, you know, you see? Okay, leave it. You pick up the topic.
Thabit is one of the
I told you
Sayyid bin Thabit wrote in Kufic script that did not have diatrical
marks. So I hope today Bob is not going to run away from me. Proper debate today. Moderator. I'm taking over. Moderator now.
I'll be moderator. Anyway, you have your joke. I'm going to go get
No. Bob, don't run away from me.
I'm sorry, Lenny.
Sorry, Lenny.
Why are you running?
No. You arrange the debate. Cameraman arrange the debate.
Don't run.
Came here 2 weeks ago, he saw me in the city.
I mean,
he's going to arrange the debate. Me and Bob. Yeah, Bob is running away from me again.
Follow, brother.
He's running away. You see, I told you you run away from me. The cameraman is here. He met me in the city 2 weeks ago. And I told you.
Who's running away, Levy? Who's running away? No one's running away. We're here, bro.
Bob is not going to run away.
We're here.
He's running.
He's running away from me.
Have some respect. Let you finish the conversation. Then you do
arrange a debate. That's why I'm here. Yo, 2 weeks ago, in there, let me in the picture. He arranged a debate 2 weeks ago. I met him in the city for me to come and debate.
It was last week.
You told me, he said he's going to be here. But you said
it was last
what did you say? You said last week. You told me Bob will be here today. You said Bob will be here today.
Bob, I can see it.
Yeah, Bob is running away from me.
How is he running away, bro? He's standing right here.
No. He was married with somebody. That's what you question. Who's going to get a moderator? We need a moderator, please.
The victory of Christ.
Who's going to moderator here? We need a moderator.
All the history supports us.
We're going to have a moderator today.
It doesn't.
Don't run away from me. It should be on your channel. It should be on your channel.
We have to articulate arguments.
When you hear that, they're going to have a drink. They're going to have a drink. They're going to come back. It's going to get a drink.
You had the opportunity.
No.
Lenin had his opportunity.
He's running away from me. Whenever he sees me panic, I'm coming down. He's going to come and debate with me today. And the debate, I met the cameraman in the city 2 weeks ago. He said he was going to arrange a debate. for me and brought to debate today. I came here today, and now he's running away from me. The debate is going to be, according to him, debate is violence, intolerance, sexism, or slavery in the Quran or in the Bible, because that is his favorite topic. When he comes here, all he does attack Islam. Now I come in here, he's running away from me. So